My name's Carly. I'm 31 and I have stage 4, aka metastatic breast cancer. So, this is part 2 of my diagnosis story. The first part is the lead up to my diagnosis, and now I'm going to talk about how I was actually diagnosed. So, I woke up on October 23rd, 2025, in excruciating pain. I initially I annoy my husband because every time I get out of bed, he's usually sleeping. I'm usually the first one up, so I'll just make my side of the bed when I get up. So when I tried to tuck the fitted sheet into my bed, just to give you a picture of how much pain I was in and how little threw me into pain, I tried to tuck the fitted sheet into my bed, and I just felt this sharp shooting pain go through my back. And it was like unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It was the worst pain. If I had a 10 before this time period, this was my new 10, and I had a bigger pain scale now. So I yelled out in pain, and my husband, it threw him out of sleep. He jumped up and he could tell the excruciating pain I was in. My mom actually, so we were living with my parents at the time while we decided we were going to be house hunting. So she was home and she actually heard me and ran in. And I was just shivering in pain. It was excruciating. Like, even thinking back to it, it was bad. So I was waiting for a call in with my spine specialist about what I should do, because I was waiting for this MRI, and that was really going to be the key piece here in identifying what was wrong. My mom was saying, she's had a herniated disc. This sounds like maybe it could be a herniated disc, and it's important that we get this figured out. So that my husband and my mom were actually encouraging me to go to the ER. My spine specialist actually calls me back and says, you know what, go to the ER, see if they can do an MRI, and keep me in the loop. So I decided, you know what, let's just go to the ER, see what they can do. My husband and I go, and the ER was actually like surprisingly empty. We go right back, and they say to me, we're not going to be able to do an ER. Those are only for life-threatening circumstances. So we said, okay, what can you do for me? So they said, we'll give you some pain medication and we'll do a CT. So I said, fine, we'll do a CT. And here I am thinking, also my husband and I both thinking, there's going to be nothing on the CT. I'm going to have to wait for this MRI. And it was just the idea that I wouldn't get my MRI until over a month, well, about a month later, was daunting to me. So get the CT of my thoracic region, because the pain that I had was right below my right shoulder blade, but more like mid-back. So they did the thoracic CT, and then that's when, my husband and I, it was like taking a long time for the CT results. We were joking about, it's taking forever. Oh, nothing, happens quickly in the ER. And we were even debating, okay, where should we go to get food on the way from home? Because they're not going to be able to tell me anything. The ER PA who I had been seeing came in, and I can see her face so vividly. She looked like a deer in headlights. And she says, you have lytic lesions on your spine. And my husband and I look at each other like, okay, what does that mean? Because we don't know what that means. And she says, that's a sign of metastatic disease. And I know what the word metastatic means. And I said, what do you mean? And I just feel like that this conversation, I just I heard everything and nothing at the same time. And I remember my husband asking the question, could it have not just originated here? Like, it had to have come from somewhere else? And all the PA did was say, just shook her head like, no, it had to have come from somewhere else. That's when the ER attending comes in and starts saying, can we do, an exam of you? And so they were feeling all over for lumps, all over my groin, my underarms, my boobs, everything. And they couldn't find anything. And they said, have you had any symptoms like weight loss, night sweats, anything? Because they said they were trying to find the primary location where this originated. And I just felt like I was just outside my body at this point. It felt like everyone was moving around me, but I was stuck. Like, it was like I was frozen. And so they said, it's a good thing you came in. And we're going to need to admit you to the hospital and run more tests, because you also, we're going to have to repair a compression fracture in your T9. So I had a fractured vertebrae that was caused by the lytic lesions. And if you don't know what lytic lesions are, they're actually holes in your, lytic means hole. So it was holes in my spine. So that evening, they actually ended up doing a CT of my head, my neck, my abdomen, and my chest. And then that's when they found a lesion in my right breast, lesions throughout my spine, and then lesions in my hips and my pelvis. And they said it must have come from my breast. And I was so confused because I kept saying, I had a mammogram and ultrasound in June, 3 weeks before my back pain developed. How would this have come about? And they were also confused. We were all very confused. Even all the doctors and nurses were confused by that. So I ended up being admitted to the hospital, got an MRI of my entire spine, my hips, my pelvis. They found lytic lesions throughout everywhere, all throughout my cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and my hips and my pelvis. Luckily, nothing was found in my head or anything seeming, to be in the organs. It was just, throughout my spine and my pelvis. And they also ended up, while I was at the ER, so I was there for 6 days. They also had to do the kyphoplasty, which is when they inject cement into your spine, and they repaired my T9 fracture. They also ended up, while I was in the hospital, taking biopsies of my breast and biopsy of my spine. And that's when they diagnosed me with stage 4 invasive ductal carcinoma. The biopsies came back as hormone receptor positive, so estrogen and progesterone positive, and HER2 low. And that's when, we thought it was just in my spine and my pelvis. I ended up later having a PET scan about less than 3 weeks later. On November 12th, I had a PET scan that actually showed widespread osseous metastasis. I don't know if that's the right word, but widespread disease throughout my bones. So yeah, so I don't have anything in my organs. I haven't had a brain MRI, but I'm having no symptoms. So I'm trying not to trick myself into feeling like I have any symptoms, but that's unnerving to know that, it's not caught on a PET scan. I do not have anything in lymph nodes. And I know that's confusing. And maybe if I had a sentinel node biopsy or something, maybe they would come back positive, but I don't have anything showing up on MRI, CTs, or PET as of now. So I guess I'll kind of go into my baseline PET scan results in another video. And then I just had my first post-treatment PET that I would also like to share the results of, but just wanted to give the diagnosis story in case, it helps anybody with their own. So let me know if you have any questions.